Welcome to Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. I'm Samantha Fackler, your host, business mentor, brand strategist, and someone who believes that building a business is one of the most spiritual journeys you can take. I am here to help you grow your business through proven strategies and aligned practices, so ultimately you can make more money while being in a state of ease. Now, why me? I have worked with over 100 companies and almost 14 years in the brand and marketing space. I've worked with brands that you, your mom, and your grandma know, but I am also spiritual. I love astrology, I keep crystals in my desk, and I'm a Reiki master. So I bring an extra little flavor to this conversation. Let's get into it. She's back. This is the first podcast that I'm recording after I returned from my little 3-week adventure. I spent the first week having a solo offsite and the following 2 on vacation. But of course, that's not exactly how things went. And it ended up being honestly kind of a spiritual journey. And I ended up getting these big, business psychology lessons that I did not intend to, but the universe had lots of room to play cosmic jokes on David and I. So that's what this episode is going to be about. It's going to be about these big things that I experienced and learned that I think are so important for entrepreneurs who are growing businesses in a way that, you just want to be aware, you want to be conscious. I think all of these also apply to just everyday corporate leaders or just humans, people, because there are a lot of things that we get caught up in. So I'm going to be kind of peeling back the curtain too on some of my tendencies, like my people pleasing and need or want to control how things roll out sometimes in my business, and how this time away actually led me to shift out of those things more significantly, just with a few kind of light experiences, let's say. So I'm so excited to dig into it. To start this off, I've designed offsites for a lot of companies and leadership teams. I have facilitated offsites, and when I thought about my own, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'll have 5 days to myself while David is actually working, abroad, and I get to do whatever I want. I had this feeling before of like, okay, maybe I'll find a co-working space and a big whiteboard and I'll go all like private investigator on the move, threading together big ideas, la-di-da-di-da. And of course, I did not do any of that. And in fact, I showed up to this little town outside of Amsterdam where we were staying, and I showed up sick, which sucked. But it was a lesson to rest. And I think I very much needed that after the first half of this year and how busy it had been. So I kind of blazed my way in to the beginning of this journey. And it was exactly what I needed, because I had these really slow mornings and I was on a matcha grind, and I would just be at these little cafes in this small Dutch town. And I remember there was one morning specifically, I was like in this little courtyard, there's church bells going off that just sound really cute. There are seagulls because this town was not too far from the coast. And there's all these beautiful canals. I check my email and I get one of the biggest checks that I've gotten in my business probably in the last couple of years, because I had these special projects that I was doing in the first half of the year, and one came in and I was like, oh my gosh, cool. Rad. Okay. I was so excited and I just was totally beaming. I probably looked like this crazy American girl, just smiling with green teeth from her matcha. And, I saw these other ones too of money going out of my business also, automatically paying, certain contractors that I work with or subscriptions that I have for software that my business runs on. And I thought, how cool. This is one of those things that people think about, like, oh, I'd love to be able to have freedom in my life to travel and basically, be still getting money while having this life that's more free, right? And of course, that's exactly what this was. But I want to add that money was also going out. Money is always coming in and out. And I want people to remember that when they see things on social media that are like, oh yeah, I just got this check of whatever, $15,000. It's like, okay, well, you also are probably paying team members and have a lot of costs on the back end too. But I digress. The big lesson of this first one that really hit me in this moment was like what you're living now was probably your dream in the past. So take note of your present situation and think about how past you really wanted to be exactly where you are. We are constantly chasing and trying to get to the next thing. And we often forget to take a moment and savor where we are and understand that we're already achieving. We're always making progress in some way, whether as people or in our business, with partnerships, with our team, friends, family, right? Like we're multidimensional human beings. Take a beat and just notice where you are. This, when I researched it more later, I really noticed that this is evidence-based confidence building. And I've worked with clients on this in the past too. It's like when you look at your past wins, it gives you this confidence that your future goals you will hit too. It's just a matter of time. So I don't know if you're like me. I don't know if this is just like the Capricorn in me that is super goal oriented, but I always want to hit the next thing. And so this was like the perfect first big lesson of my trip. And of course, it came in like the most random, calm, restful moments, right? It's just like, yeah, you're doing it. You're on your way. And those future things that you really want that you were going to map out this week and get all like crazy about and nerd out on, yeah, those are probably going to come true too, but in time and in the right way of how they're meant to. Now, fast forward, I'm starting to get my groove back on my trip, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use these last 3 days of this quote, solo offsite to really do this bigger thinking that I want to do. I feel restful. I feel like I'm feeling a lot of gratitude for where I am right now, and my goal was to get into big, gorgeous spaces because I believe that when we surround ourselves with bigger, larger than life, inspiring environments, then our thinking also expands into that, right? Our level of thinking, our creativity, our movement, if you will, like we get to grow into what's around us. So I wanted to find like the most beautiful place I could surround myself in. And that was, to me, the research library at the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. So I went there and it's this gorgeous, like 4 or 5 story library. If you go to the museum, you can actually peek at it from the top, but the bottom of it is reserved for research only. And I wanted to be like that art history dropout nerd, actually doing research. I wanted to own that seat because you can't actually be in that library unless you are researching something that has to do with art or art history. So after going to the Van Gogh Museum, which is a museum I always wanted to go to, I've always been interested in Van Gogh and post-impressionism specifically. It's a style of art that I learned about, I don't know, in high school, probably in class. And I just felt drawn to. There was something to it. And so I look at all his work, and I decide to research more about, what were his letters and diaries. He wrote all these letters to his brother. And I also wanted to see, he died, basically by suicide, but how did his work get known? And I found so many interesting things when I was at that little research library, being a total Hermione. And I found that his sister-in-law is the main reason why he's famous because he died, and his brother, who's in the art business at the time, died about a year later. And his brother and him were super close. I think they wrote like over 800 letters to each other. And his brother's dying wish was for his wife to help make Vincent van Gogh famous. And so she just lost her husband. She inherited hundreds of works of art from Vincent van Gogh, and she just slays it. She understands the market. She knows, okay, I'm gonna like release these one at a time. She knows that she needs to make key relationships with certain people in the business and certain art critics. So she nurtures those relationships over time. And she does, she makes Vincent van Gogh famous. And so I feel like, shout out to Joe Van Gogh, wherever your spirit is, because that's badass. That's so cool. And I think another thing that I like found out here, and of course there were business lessons that I was kind of taking note on from Joe Van Gogh, but it was also this underlying thing that I noticed from Vincent van Gogh himself. And that was that he thought portraits were going to be his thing. Like he had this decades long career, a lifetime career basically of painting. And he was like, but portraits are going to be the thing, and I need to be good at portraits. When you look at Vincent van Gogh's work and you look at his most famous things, they're not portraits. They are very simple things like his bedroom or nature. He's very known for his, landscapes and sunflowers and these small, kind of everyday natural elements. That's what he's known for. And that's where his style developed and why he's so distinct. So, the lesson I took away from this as I was going, back to the hotel after this kind of big day, I was also, I need to pause for a second. While I was in the middle of this, I also very much understood, like, I don't know why I'm researching these things, but I feel called to. And I didn't know where they were going, but I was enjoying myself. And then it all came together when I was on my way home to the hotel because I noticed that this is very much like a strengths-based approach versus trying to fix weaknesses. If Vincent van Gogh just owned his complete style and ran with that, who knows how many more famous works we might have from Van Gogh. But because he tried to do these portraits so heavily, it's almost like, yo, play to your strengths, and I see this all the time with clients and myself. It was a huge lesson for me. I was like, where am I trying to force skills that actually don't come naturally? And where are the things in my life and business that I am naturally really good at that I can capitalize on? And when I say capitalize on, I don't necessarily mean make money from it, but strengthen those and see what might come from that, both from myself as a human, my team who I work with, friends and family, as well as the business. And so I think my big takeaway from this one for you all is like identify what feels effortless to you that people comment on and they're like, wow, you're really good at this. And if you can't pick that apart, then go ask 3 people that you've worked closely with or that are, close friends of yours and ask this question. It might be a little terrifying, but I challenge you to because it's so beautiful what you can get back and what you can learn. And then you can double down on your strengths. Okay, so then cue scene switch. We leave the small town outside of Amsterdam and we officially start our vacation. But of course, this is when like the spiritual lessons begin. And even though I didn't get like a ton of work done during the quote offsite week, I found that the big visions and the thinking I was trying to tap into actually came through the entire trip, all the way until the very end, which we'll get to in a minute. So, about midway through this, David and I are road tripping around Scotland. And Scotland is a very, very near and dear country to me because my grandma grew up there until she was in her mid-20s. And then she flew to the States to marry my grandpa because they had met abroad in Hong Kong. And it's like this beautiful romantic story that I'll probably share another time. But they basically, well, I'll share it right now. What are we doing? Okay, so they were in Hong Kong. They totally fell in love. They wrote letters for a year after she went to Scotland. He was in the Navy sailing around. And then he basically called her up one day, proposed. She came over to the States. She has never been back to Scotland since. So, as her granddaughter, I thought it was so cool that I was going to be able to be there. And I made it a point to go to where she grew up, which is kind of in the northern area in Inverness. And it was so beautiful. And I swear, because of that connection, I just felt really, I call it like tapped in, where you're just flowing with stuff and you're kind of getting these like intuitive downloads or messages, whatever you want to call them, that just kind of hit you out of nowhere. And so David and I are on this gorgeous hike. We're surrounded by mountains, no buildings, no people. It's so serene. It doesn't feel like we're freaking like mountaineering. Like I don't feel unsafe. I feel very, very safe there. And we're going along this beautiful path. And of course, we get to this waterfall area. Like there's this gorgeous, like a kind of magical, mystical waterfall and all of these rocks around. And of course, we're kind of just chilling, hanging out there. And David decides to kind of start free climbing around. And I'm like, great. This is now where the stress comes in. And I'm watching his shoes like slip here and there. Just like, oh man, okay, okay, deep breaths. And then all of a sudden, I get this kind of message. And it's like the words just like pop in my brain out of nowhere. And they're like, you don't have to fix everything. I was like, okay, I am watching my husband potentially fall and break a bone and think about how to get him back to the car and how I'm going to start driving on the other side of the road when this mantra comes in. Okay, of course this happens. And so I start saying that to myself. I don't have to fix everything. I don't have to fix everything. And sure enough, David's totally fine. He knows what he's doing. He's not a noob when it comes to nature. He has climbed before. He's totally fine. And this little mantra allowed me to get out of my head, get out of this fixer mode, and really just enjoy this gorgeous waterfall and hike that we were on. Now, the psychology thing underpinning this is the locus of control, understanding what do you have control over and what do you not. This is so important. And I feel like it comes up all the time with my own life and client sessions, but a lot of times, I don't know if you're like me, but I do have a people pleaser part of me that likes to please other people, to fix things, to be the one that comes in and saves the day. But I have worked really hard over the last 12 to 13 years, especially in therapy and in coaching, to unwind that tendency. And it will still pop up from time to time because we're not perfect and it does that. But this kind of mantra really taps into that. It's like you don't need to control everything. And in fact, sometimes it's best if you don't. And, things get a hell of a lot easier when you stop doing these energy draining things, like trying to control absolutely everything. So the takeaway here for you is next time you feel that urge to like step in and start giving advice or start trying to fix something, ask, is this mine to fix? It's probably not. If it is, it's yours. And I think a good example of this is that when we got back from our trip, there was something that happened with, my husband, kind of like a conflict thing. I could tell I know he was really stressed about it, talking about it. And this mantra came in again. And of course, I could have given him advice. I could have tried to coach him through it. But when I remembered, I don't have to fix everything, I really just listened to him. And I told him, hey, let me know if how you want my support. But otherwise, just gave him a ton of space that week to sort it out. And sure enough, he did. He sorted it out, and not just that, but he learned from it. He felt stronger and happier after the what happened. So because I didn't step in, he solved his own problem and he was better off for it. So a reminder, don't rob people the opportunity to solve their own problems by people pleasing and trying to fix everything. Okay, back to the fun stuff. So as we're in Scotland, we're driving around. We're in this SUV because the car rental place was like, yeah, you're not going to want a sedan if you're going to be driving that area. Like, you need an SUV. This place is rough and tumbles. So we're like, cool, great. We're in this SUV. We're feeling good. We're driving to this beautiful, like, kind of mountain range. There's like this hike where you go and there's just like all these like steep, gorgeous mountains and there's just pure ocean next to it. It's unreal looking, right? And so we're driving there and, we're doing these little drives off the road because it's basically a one lane thing. So when you approach a car, you're basically looking head on, and one of you needs to drive off the path at some point to let the other one go by. Lovely, calm driving. So we're driving down this road. We can actually see the mountain range in the back. It looks so pretty. We're like, ooh, okay, we're almost there, maybe 10, 15 minutes away. We do these little divots, so we drive off the side, and all of a sudden, when we start driving again, there is a screeching sound that sounds like something is about to blow up in the car. And Dave and I look at each other. He kind of slows down. It stops when the car stops, and then it starts every time he accelerates. We're like, what the hell is that? Keep in mind, we are in the middle of nowhere. There are some cars driving by, but other than that, there's no civilization. There's no 7-Eleven down the street, and service is spotty at best. So we're like, oh, fuck, like, what do we do? So we inspect the car, we kind of check things out, and I remember this mantra: I don't have to fix everything. We don't have to fix everything. We just need to figure out what to do in this situation. We're not car mechanics. We're not going to be able to diagnose this on the fly. So we do our best. David is able to contact an auto shop, talks to them. And while they're talking, I'm like, okay, I can't add anything to this situation. So I'm going to go hang out over here. And when I decide that, I literally hear this sound, and it's a goat. It's like, bah. It's like the literal goat sound. And I'm like, are you kidding? It sounded like the goats were making fun of us. And they're like, these idiots on vacation. They don't know how to drive in Scotland. So I go and I just honestly like go get closer to the goats. Like there's a fence obviously between us, but I'm like, I'm just gonna hang out here. I don't know what to do. There's nothing around. I can't help anymore. David's on the phone, problem solving. And instead of panicking, I was just like, I'm going to enjoy this. This might be the closest we get to this mountain, and it's really pretty here. So I just really enjoyed my moment despite us having a car breakdown situation. Now, when I reflected back on this, I was like, this is a good example of psychological flexibility and adaptation, because sometimes in our life or our business, things do break down and there is a crisis. And it's like, okay, sometimes we actually can't fix the problem. We have to move around it. We have to manage what we can until the next step, whatever that may be. So giving yourself space. I really think that when crises happen in our life, it's a diversion. And now sometimes there's not always a reason for them, but when I view them as like a purposeful diversion for some reason, it's a lot easier to accept in the moment. At the time, I was like, maybe we weren't meant to go on this hike. Maybe something shitty would have happened if we actually got there. Or maybe, I don't know, there was a worse thing that could happen with our car down the road. Because sure enough, we were able to drive it back to the auto shop. It ended up literally solving itself on the drive back to the auto shop. So by the time we got there, they were like, yeah, you're fine. Everything looks good. It was just a rock stuck in the steering wheel thing, and we were fine. So every time we turned left, there's a screech for a little while, but it was gone by the time we got to the, car doctors to fix it. So kind of one of those things, right? It's like, why did this happen? It just totally diverted us. But we were like, let's flow with it. And it made the whole experience so much easier. We didn't get mad at each other. We didn't start screaming. We didn't get stressed out. I think both David and I were pretty calm most of the time. Now, granted, I think we're both pretty calm in crisis situations. That's just like our patterning and I don't know, who we are, how we've come to be that way. So I challenge you, next time it feels like there's a crisis situation, see like, well, how might this actually be working for us? What might be the silver lining here? Because that little bit of positivity can feel like a warm, beautiful blanket in a sometimes sticky situation. So the last thing here, the last lesson from this trip came at the very end. We had a beautiful time, like, learning about history of Scotland and Ireland and the people. Had a great day finishing our trip in London for about 48 hours. Great food, walked all over the place. Ended up ditching my sneakers and buying these like platform leopard sandals that I ended up wearing for the rest of the day in London, including this like beautiful dinner at the Barbary. But I digress. So fast forward, we go through this massive travel day from London to Boston to San Diego. We're like dragging our feet. I'm dragging my leopard platform sandals that I'm still in because I wore them on the way back. And it's 1 a.m. We have our bags. We are so tired after the time change. We basically haven't slept in like 36 hours. And we realize when we get to the door, we have no key. It's 1 a.m. on a Monday. And we're almost suspended in reality when we get to this point because we're like, oh my gosh, how could this happen? How? And we start thinking about what to do, potentially getting an Uber, hopefully at 1:30 that comes to like our neighborhood, and then going to one of our parents' houses, but probably getting there at 2:30 and then having to call a locksmith. And basically, we go down all these avenues of trying to fix the problem to the point where I just feel like there has to be another way. And I literally get on my knees because I'm so tired. I'm so done. And I'm like, universe, I beg you, like, please allow us to get into our house. I want to be in a shower and then in bed. Like, oh my God, please. And then I get this visual in my head of this random cabinet in our garage that the sellers had left like a lot of like weird old shit in. And I was like, I actually didn't even say anything to David. I just got up and then I went into the garage because we did have access to that. And I start rummaging around this cabinet. There's like old paint cans, firewood, and I see this random box that I swear I've never seen before. I open it and it is a spare doorknob with a key in the doorknob. I pull it out. It doesn't look like our typical house key, but I like slowly, almost slow motion hand it to David. And I'm like, okay, don't get your hopes up, but I found this key and we should try it. And lo and behold, we got into our house at like 1:30 a.m. Okay, this lesson was something that I was learning throughout the trip over and over and over and over and over in little moments, but this was like the big finale where the lessons sank in. And that was that your intuition, your body's wisdom has so much more than your analytical mind. This is called embodied cognition, right? So it's the body's way of knowing something far before the brain can typically catch up. And there's so many different things around this. Like the Heart Math Institute says there's, like I think 40,000 neurons in your heart. Don't quote me on that. Definitely check the source, but it's like our heart has so many neurons, our gut has neurons, like that's why we feel things like gut instinct, or if we have this eerie feeling about something where our brain just doesn't totally have that information yet. So the takeaway from this last one is not just trust your intuition, but start tracking how your intuition shows up. For me, sometimes I get visuals. So it's almost like, you kind of in your mind's eye get like a snap vision of something. Like That's So Raven. That's my best example. Sometimes I'll like hear certain words like in my own voice, almost like my thinking voice, and that's how it shows up for me primarily. But start noticing like how does your intuition turn on? Is it a body feeling? Is it a taste or a smell? Is it something you hear? When you start tracking how it shows up and you start trusting it, it gets stronger. It will always feel subtle, I think, because it's your intuition. It's not going to overpower you because you don't want to be overpowered by it. So once you start tracking these things, then you start to notice when they turn on when you're doing things like making a big decision or considering something that might change the game for you. So see if you can get out of your head and into a space that allows that intuition to show up. To wrap today's episode, I'm going to quickly go over the 5 takeaways that I covered. The first being, look at how you are living a dream that your past self had and kind of start to track those because they build confidence that you can achieve the future things that you haven't done yet. Lesson number 2 from Mr. Van Gogh, play into your strengths. So see what is effortless for you and even ask some people if you're not quite sure what that might be, and then double down on that. Lesson number 3 from the Scottish waterfall hike. The takeaway from that one was rising to your next level gets a hell of a lot easier when you get rid of the people-pleasing behavior, the fixing behavior that can be really energy draining. So whether it's a mantra or whether you work on this with someone, really try to unwind that piece and ask yourself, next time you find yourself in a situation where that thing wants to turn on, ask, is this mine to fix? The 4th takeaway is that not all crises are bad. So see if you can see the silver lining of them, create space, trust the lesson, and ultimately start to flow with things instead of trying to force things, especially knowing what you can and can't control. All right, so number 4 is kind of a bump on top of number 3. And the 5th lesson here is embodied cognition. So notice how your intuition shows up, start to strengthen it so that you really start to trust it, get to know it. You'll start to notice it turning on and giving you more information as time goes on. And see if you can make space for that to show up a little bit more often. So with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I don't like making them all about me and my personal life, so I tried to hit both today. Let me know what you think. I genuinely want to know. We also talk about these episodes in my free community headquarters, so there you can ask me more questions. I talk about other stories that did not get featured in the podcast episode, and there's so much more. We're also introducing a lot of cool free events in that space, so go check it out with the link in the show notes. I'm your host, Samantha Fackler. Thank you for being here, and I'll catch you next time.